In the previous episode, Yuhua defended Hao, but because of the fight, the principal found out about the situation and reported. Her parents were very strict and so they punished her severely. That day Hao was caught in a heavy rain and caught a cold. Her half-sister took care of him, but he was not comfortable with such care. In the evening of the same day, Miss Wei couldn't sleep and realized that she had fallen in love with Hao, thinking about him all the time. Late at night she decided to call him, but Hao didn't expect it and didn't understand who could call him at such a late hour. Hao picked up the phone, but Wei was silent and couldn't say anything to him. Hao said if he didn't hear someone's voice now, he would just hang up. At that moment, Wei said that it was her who decided to call him. Hao was surprised and asked what was wrong and why she was calling him at such a late hour. Is someone after him again? But Wei told him that she just couldn't sleep and she decided to talk to him. Hao looked at the time and was puzzled. He asked her if she decided to call a high school student at 2 in the morning to tell a bedtime story or sing a lullaby. Wei asked him to watch his words and that he should not forget who she is talking to. Hao called her a tyrant since she calls him deep at night and after that she asks him to be polite to her. He asked her why she called him. Wei asked him if Yuhua taught him how to fight. Hao indignantly asked, was she following him again? Didn't answer that question and said that Yuhua's abilities were rather mediocre and therefore, he would be better off with Hua, since Wei was a professional. She told him that he had a good base and if he hard could become a world-class bodyguard and achieve a lot of fame. Hao hesitated as her attitude towards him was getting tougher, wanted him to become an internet star, but now, for some reason, she suggested that he should become a bodyguard. Hao told her that he was not interested and asked her not to pester him anymore as he did not want to have any close relationship with her. He replied that he and Yuhua were just practicing after school, and if she called him again for no reason, he would change his number. Wei asked him if there were other people around him but Hao asked her to stop asking stupid questions, and then he hung. Wei was very upset and did not believe that he and Yuhua were just practicing together. She suspected that there was something between them. The next day, Hao woke up and saw the launching pad that said, I left you clothes. He saw that there were indeed some clothes hanging on the chair. These clothes were left for him by his half-sister in case he woke up in the night. She took very good care of. At that moment Qianqin looked into his room and said that she needed his help to pick out clothes for her. She showed him 2 dresses and asked him which one he liked best. But Hao was shocked that his half-sister so easily came to him in her underwear, and if it wasn't for his willpower he would just bleed from his nose. He told her that the orange dress looked really cool. Qianqin said that in that case she would wear the dress he liked. She turned around and her back was open. Suddenly he saw a tattoo, but Hao didn't even know that his half-sister had a T. After a while Qianqin asked him to wait for her as she had to go to the institute. Hao said he would wait for her and told her to be careful on the roads. He thought this world is very good, but he missed his friends and family from the old world. He needed to think of other ways to earn money to make money faster, besides writing and streaming. At that moment he remembered that Lu Xian was offered $50,000, and he wanted to find out about it today. He went to the police station and said that he had heard that Lu Xian was being offered $50,000 as a reward for his information, and he came today because it was late yesterday. Hao asked if they would give him the money. She called him handsome and said she remembered. But because he is a high school student, they can't pay him today because they have to do the paperwork and the money will come in a month at best. Hao told her that he is an adult and can they give him the reward in cash. But she apologized to him as it was a requirement from the customer and they are just following the rules. Hao asked in surprise, so the reward was not their initiative in the first place. He said could they tell him the name of the customer and he would try to contact. She said that for the sake of confidentiality, she could not tell him the identity of Director Wei and he should contact Feng Hong Group directly. A few minutes later, she called Ms. Wei and said that Hao was on his way to collect the reward and he wanted the cash and she told him to come straight to her office. Wei said she was ready. Wei laughed as Hao hung up on her last night, and today he is coming to her office in person. Hao office thought about it, because yesterday he cut off all ties with her and now he came to ask for the money. He went into the office and asked a female employee how he could get to the top floor and to be let in. He said he was visiting a relative. When she saw him, she immediately fell in love with him and shyly asked him if he was visiting his dad and asked him what his dad's name was, because he might be her boss. They got into the elevator and he said that his dad was not her boss and she might not even know his relative. Suddenly she very close to him and asked him if he was a high school student. If so, what school is he from? After all, such a handsome boy is probably the most handsome in school. Hao was shy and realized that he was in an unpleasant situation again. At this point they arrived at the top floor and he was about to leave. He wanted to get away from her as quickly as possible and said that he didn't need to be seen. Suddenly she took his hand and told him that she really liked him very much. She said that he probably didn't believe in love at first sight, but before she didn't believe in it either, but now she realized her mistake. She exclaimed that she couldn't love another man and asked him to give her just one more chance. But at that moment the elevator doors opened and Miss Wei violently hit the elevator stop button. She looked angrily into her eyes and the employee was very scared as soon as she saw her. Wei told her to get the hell out of here and never come to this company again. She sat down on her knees and asked her, did she do something wrong? Hao also told her that she did nothing wrong and what right does she have to fire her on her wish alone. Wei asked him, is he really asking for her sake? Employee said that she had always done her best for the company and she had no complaints. She asked Wei not to fire her and she would never flirt with anyone again. Hao calmed her down and told her to get off her knees as a woman should not behave like that. Besides, she just needed to change her job. But she could not let that, because if other companies found out that Director Wei had fired her, she would not be hired by any other company. Wei grabbed Hao by the arm and angrily dragged him into her office. She pinned him against the wall and angrily asked him how dare he cuddle with another woman right in front of her eyes. Hao took her hand and replied, where did she see him hugging her employee, because he just helped her stand up. Besides, they were just on their way, so he talked to her a little bit, and she because of that, decided to fire the man. Hao asked. Wei replied that it was obvious that the employee was just following him. Hao sat down on the couch and asked her if she thought it was none of her business after all. He is a free man and she can't really demand anything from him. And his conversation with her employee. Wei sat down on the table and said that he is just a master of getting on her nerves and he does it all on purpose. Hao saw her up close and shyly wondered because her character is not sugar, but her body is really incredible and apparently it's the result of regular training. He wondered if she was afraid that with such clothes she would have a glimpse of her underwear every now and then. Wei noticed that he was silent and staring at her legs. She decided to take advantage of this and at that moment she changed the position of her legs. Suddenly she told him that in that case she would give him a chance to save the employee, but for that he would have to play a game. She would plant those cigarettes and she has to catch them with her left hand and he has to catch them with his right hand. If he catches them first, then she won't fire that employee. Hao agreed to her conditions, because he may be inferior in strength, but his reaction should be faster than hers. At that moment, without any warning, she tossed the cigarette. Hao indignantly told her why she didn't even warn him. Hao jumped up to catch the cigarette as fast as possible, but Wei wasn't going to lose either and jumped. But Hao was faster than her, but at that moment Wei couldn't resist jumping and hugged Hao and they sat on the sofa together. Hao told her that he had won. She didn't mind her loss and accepted her defeat. Hao wondered if she would go further than molestation, but her body was incredible and he couldn't complain about that. But at that moment she felt his hand on her thigh and called him a little pervert, because not only did he roll up the sleeve of his shirt, but he was pawing at her leg. Hao shyly replied that she was the one molesting him, and wasn't he even allowed to resist, but Hao forgot that in this world, a man rolling up his sleeve is the same as a girl lifting up her skirt. He said he admits his guilt, but however, he caught the cigarette, which means she won't fire the employee. How asked her to get up off him, because she falls on him so often that he starts to think that she has a crush on. Wei replied that she can't say anything about having a crush, but he is definitely the most attractive man to her and she has never met a man like him before, because he has a strong will, he is independent, brave, responsible and physical too. Hao said she shouldn't praise him so much and asked her for her $50,000. But at that moment she suddenly jumped up and said she had to go to the toilet. Hao laughed because he didn't expect it to turn out that way and now she ran to the toilet. Suddenly his stepsister called him and asked him angrily why he hadn't listened to her and left the house again, because she had called the house phone and no one answered. Hao had tricked her and said that Luan couldn't do his homework, so he had to go to his house to help him. Hao told her not to worry because he would be home soon. Qianqin told him that he was still sick and told him to come back as early as possible, but she couldn't come back early because she had a reunion today. A friend came up to her and asked her why she was still inside, embarrassedly replied that she was just talking on the phone. She started to go in and her friend saw a tattoo on her waist. Her friend asked what kind of tattoo was it. Qianqin looked at her phone where Hao's picture was and said that it was the name of someone very important to her. Hao heard someone asking his half-sister about the tattoo, but because of the heavy noise, he couldn't hear the meaning of. Hao saw a pack of cigarettes and was surprised. These cigarettes are quite expensive and good. At that moment, Wei came out of the toilet and Hao thought about her. She was beautiful and not inferior to her half-sister. Wei told him that he was still young and he shouldn't smoke. Hao said that he just smelled it. He asked her. She went into the toilet. How come she changed her clothes? After all, she didn't do anything like that in there, did she? Wei replied that she was an ordinary girl and asked him not to tempt her anymore. After all, one day she will not be able to restrain. Hao stood in a stupor and did not understand why she did not even deny it. Did she do what he really thought? But he said that he didn't care what she was doing there and he reminded her that he came here for money and asked her to give it quickly. He would leave and not tempt her. But she smiled and said that it seems she doesn't need to give him any more money because the cigarette he just lit up was worth 60,000, so he now owes her. Hao exclaimed that one cigarette can't be worth that much money. Wei suggested that he check the information himself if he didn't believe her. But Hao couldn't believe it, because he had never seen a cigarette cost 60,000 in his life, and he had spent all day on it, and now he owed her 10,000. But at this point Wei laughed at him, and Hao said she was just. She handed him the envelopes with the money and said she's lying about the price of the cigarette, but however, she wouldn't make him pay for a cigarette. Wei said the envelope contained the promised $50,000. Hao said she had a bad temper, but she kept. He said that maybe what he did was really wrong, so he deserved that attitude from her, but they should forget what happened between them and not see each other again. Because only then, she could still work hard and it would be better for her and him. Hao said he had to leave and asked and he touched her hair, so she might catch a cold like him too. He called the elevator and thought about it. After all tyrants in novels have a heightened sense of possessiveness, so he should be careful what says. After all, it's scary to imagine what would happen if she really fell in love with him. At this time, Wei nervously lit a cigarette and threw it away. Forget everything to between them. No way, you will be mine. Qianqin and her friend were already at home and looking at the photo album. Her friend said to her, so this is why she did not get to sit with her. She immediately runs home after work, because she has such a handsome man at home. She asked, who is he? Qianqin said that he was her half-brother, but they had known each other since childhood. The friend was surprised that she had so many photos from when she was very young. Qianqin thought about it, because he was her precious Hao, and she would take more photos. Besides, she no longer had to do it secretly, because they were family. At that moment Hao came home and was surprised to ask her half-sister, because she said she would be late, so why did she come back so early? He said hello to her friend and asked, what is he watching? But Qianqin couldn't let him see this photo album of his. The friend wanted to tell him that they were looking at a photo album of his photos, but at the last moment Qianqin pinched her and signaled her not to speak. Qianqin said that it was just a research paper from her institute. Then she whispered and told her to hide the album. She understood, hid album behind her back and said. Hao was surprised as he had never seen scientific papers in such thick albums before. At that moment Qianqin came up to him and put her hand on his shoulder. Hao was surprised and asked if she was all right. She asked why he went outside, after all she had asked him in the morning to stay at home. Hao replied that he was bored at home and decided to go outside to get some fresh air, but in fact Hao could not admit to her that he went to see Principal Wei. Qianqin pinched his face and said that his face was just beautiful, but there are so many bad women outside and something could have happened to him. But Hao said he had no problem defending himself. He decided to go to his room to rest and not interfere with their scientific work. After Hao left, her friend asked her what was that just now and why can't her brother see the album. Qianqin told her to mind her own business and not to bother Hao, otherwise their friendship would end. The friend didn't understand why Qianqin reacted like that, but she said she understood and wouldn't do anything. At that time Hao was in his room and noticed that he was very tired after seeing Wei, but he looked out the window and saw someone was watching him closely. He wondered if someone else had decided to follow him, but the person who was following him was a man. Hao decided to tell his half-sister about it since his dad and mom were away on a business trip. He went down to the first floor and at that time Qianqin was seeing her friend. Hao was surprised and asked why her friend had left so quickly. Qianqin replied that she had some urgent business and asked him why he was not resting. Hao said he saw some suspicious man in their yard, so he went downstairs to ask her to be careful. Qianqin was happy that her brother cared about her so much, but she said he had nothing to worry about. After all, that man outside, her admirer whom she had already shown him. Qianqin reminded him that this guy who sent her his pictures. Hao remembered him and called him a pervert. He asked what that pervert wanted from her, because he could be very dangerous. Qianqin replied that she was really fed up with him, but unfortunately there was nothing she could do about it. Hao asked if anything he could do to help her. Qianqin said that she was very tired and said that just leaning on him would be enough. Hao realized that his half-sister really did not take him for a man. At that moment, she looked at him and asked him what was wrong with him. For some reason his face turned sharply red. He felt very embarrassed and said that he was fine, and he felt good, so he would already go to school tomorrow. Qianqin asked him why he was in such a hurry to go to school. Did he really get a girlfriend there? Hao shyly replied that he would never date a girl from school. Qianqin hugged him and said that in that case she was calm and she hoped that he was not deceiving her and having such a handsome little brother would only make her happy. She told him that she wanted him to stay with her forever. But Hao asked in surprise, what did she mean by that? Qianqin decided to walk away from the conversation and said that tomorrow she would drive him to school in her car. The next day they arrived at school and Qianqin advised him to stay in the classroom so that he wouldn't catch a cold again because he had not fully recovered yet. Hao went up to the second floor and there he met Luan. He was very happy to see him as they hadn't seen each other for 2 days. He said that it seemed like someone was bullying Yuhua. Hao asked who it was and why they were doing it. Luan said that it's all because of that incident with Lin, because some students were hospitalized, so she is now considered dangerous and they say she fights with students and they want her to be transferred to another school. Hao said that that situation happened because of him and he would have to meet Yuhua. After a while, he came to the classroom and greeted her happily. Yuhua was happy when she saw him because she missed Hao apologized to her for getting into such a bad situation because of him, and if such a situation occurs next time, we should be very careful. Yuhua asked him if he was afraid of her too. But he went up to her and put his hand on her head and said, "She is so obedient, how can you be afraid of her?" Yuhua replied that in that case she was very happy, and as long as he was with her, she was willing to do anything. The bell rang for class and Hao asked her to have lunch together after class. Classmates were discussing her, because Yuhua is so rude, but Hao considers her his other. Another replied that she would also try her best for such a man, even if she would therefore be bypassed. At 12 o'clock was lunch break. Hao and Yuhua met to have lunch together. She took out her food and there was incredibly delicious food and fresh food. She asked him if he wanted to try her lunch. When Hao saw this, he fell in love with the food their chef cooks, because every time the food looks incredible. He reached out his hand to take the shrimp, but at that moment Yuhua said, "Hand." Hao asked her in surprise, "What about his hand?" Suddenly she asked him if she could touch his hand. Hao was shocked, because in this world a man's hand is equal to a girl's leg, and if someone sees them, they will think Yuhua is hitting on him. He asked her who taught her how to do that. She said no one, and she was just looking at his hand and she wanted to touch it. Hao reached out and said there was nothing wrong with it, but it was good that she asked him about it, because if she had told Luan about it, he would have called her a pervert. But Hao let her because he touched her feet last time, and it can be said, he's paying her back. She took his hand and said she didn't quite understand that the girls in her class were calling her a loser because she hadn't kissed a guy or held hands yet. They called her stupid because she could never do that. Yuhua asked him why her classmates were making fun of. Hao said that some students think they are superior because they can touch someone else's body and think they are adults, so they make fun of others, but in fact, they are just indulging their vanity, nothing more. Don't pay attention to them. Yuhua said that her grandmother used to say that a woman should not allow herself to. At that moment, she felt embarrassed and shy. She looked him in the eyes and asked if she could kiss him. Hao didn't understand what had happened to her today as she was acting too openly. He replied that she could if it would help her to stop thinking about the words of her classmates. Hao said that he didn't mind, besides Yuhua was very affectionate and he couldn't refuse her a simple kiss. She said that in that case she would go first. But at that moment Hao looked her straight in the eye and said that if it was her first time, it would be better if he did it. He told her that she could close her eyes if she was shy, and after a few seconds they kissed. Yuhua held his hand and she felt incredible sensations and her heart started beating even faster. But a few minutes later someone started knocking violently on their room. Hao was totally and was upset that they were distracted. Yuhua told him that she was the one who locked door. At that time, a girl and a guy were standing outside the door. She didn't understand why the door was locked. She had just gone in there yesterday, but the guy told her that there are a lot of people who like to be pampered in this rehearsal room and suggested that they go to another room. Hao breathed out a sigh of relief that they weren't seen kissing. Hao told her that now she was kissing a guy and now her classmates wouldn't make fun of her and she would know what they meant. She told him that her heart started beating like crazy and was she sick. Hao was puzzled that Yuhua was very naive and he thought he was just hitting on her and not her hitting. He said she was fine and it was because of dopamine, and her friend Huang also felt it when she watched adult videos. Hao hoped that Yuhua didn't fall in love with him. Yuhua told him then they could kiss every day. After all, she liked the feeling, her heart beats very hard and her soul becomes very warm. Hao said, "No, you can't, and kissing is only for those who are dating." He is not against it, but she should not say such things to others. She understood him and agreed with him. Hao said that he would teach her everything gradually and offered to finally have dinner. Late at night Yuhua decided to go to the website that her friend Huang had given her. There were a lot of videos. She had a long time to choose and decided to watch them. But Wentham noticed that her heart was beating as usual and she didn't feel the feelings she had during the kiss. But she didn't understand why was because Hao had told her that Huang's heart was beating very fast because of such videos. She picked up the phone and thought, because Hao had told her that he would teach her everything gradually, does that mean she could call him now? After a few minutes, Hao picked up the phone and asked her what was wrong. He was extremely embarrassed about what happened this afternoon. Yuhua said that she had just watched the videos that Huang had sent her, but after watching it, her heart didn't beat faster. Maybe she wasn't watching it right? Hao indignantly asked her, did she really just watch the adult videos that Huang sent her? He didn't understand how such videos could be sent to such an innocent girl. Hao didn't know what to say to her. After all, Yuhua asked him very calmly, did Yuhua really not understand what she was talking about? Yuhua told him that maybe her questions are too strange. If so, she won't ask him such questions anymore. Hao said it's good that she understands that it's a little strange, but she shouldn't be so curious, and he doesn't mind asking such questions, but you can't ask other guys. He said explain everything to her a little later, after he takes a shower. Yuhua said okay, because she had to take a bath too. She asked him how about talking when they take a bath together. Hao asked her, does she really want to talk to him while she is bathing? She said yes, and Hao told her that he didn't mind either and asked her to put her phone up high so she wouldn't get it wet. She said she understood him and put her phone on the top shelf. Yuhua said she was ready and would start bathing soon. Hao said she didn't have to give all the details. Yuhua didn't know what to tell him and just said she was washing her hair right now and asked what he was doing right now. He said washing whatever comes to hand. At school he noticed her hair in the front of the industry and is she going to get a haircut? Hao also noticed that the conversations in the bathtub are very old. At this moment Qianqin was passing by the bathtub and heard their conversations. She got angry because he was talking to some girl while bathing. She wondered, did Hao have a girlfriend at school? She decided to do something immediately. Qianqin wrote to his friend Luan. He asked him if Hao likes a lot of people at school, said that Hao is very handsome, so he has a lot of admirers at school. Qianqin asked him if Hao has a girlfriend at school, saying that his father is interested because he is very worried about his son, but Luan said that Hao is not dating anyone and has no girlfriend. Qianqin thought if Hao has no girlfriend, it means that she still has a chance. After a few minutes, Hao came out of the shower and said he would find some material on the internet about boyfriend-girlfriend relationships and send it to her later. Hao thought it would be better than watching the videos Huang sent her. He went into his room and saw someone sleeping under the blanket on his bed. When he lifted the blanket he saw Qianqin. She pretended to be sick and said she was very hot. Hao shyly asked her what she was doing on his bed. Qianqin said she wanted to ask him to watch a movie together, but she fell asleep while waiting for him. He felt embarrassed and said he had to go away. But actually he was supposed to send a material about boyfriend-girlfriend relationships to Yuhua, but it would be very indecent to watch such material in front of Q. He decided to send her something and then explain to her in detail. After a few minutes, Hao asked Qianqin what kind of movie she wanted to watch. She said the choice was up to him, but she wouldn't mind watching a horror movie. Qianqin said she was a little sweaty and needed to go to the bath. She asked him to wait for her and he could turn off the lights for atmosphere. Hao went into the hall and thought, after all, when a boy and girl watch a horror movie, the girl hides in the boyfriend's arms, but in this world, would he have to jump into the arms of his stepsister? Hao himself is not really afraid of scary movies, but he didn't know how things work. But guys in this world are weak by nature. He imagined that he would be afraid and hug his stepsister, but he just laughed and said he wouldn't. At this moment, Qianqin came out of the bathtub and changed her clothes. She came up to him and asked him if he had chosen a movie. Seeing her like that, she blushed and said that he had chosen a movie to watch, but he hesitated and thought about it. because his half-sister doesn't pay attention to the clothes she wears at home and he would have to control himself when watching a movie. She looked at him with a penetrating look and asked why his face was so red again. Hao turned away and said that he was just too hot. He told her that they had already started watching the movie, but Hao didn't know what would happen if she came any closer to him. Qianqi knew that she had to take things slowly or she would just scare him away. She wanted to wait until he and only then she would sit closer to him. After a few minutes the movie started to get scary, but Hao didn't have the slightest sense of fear from. But at that moment Qianqi sat closer to him and took his hand. Hao asked her, did she get scared from the movie? She said that he must think that his half-sister is weak, because even he is not afraid, and she is trembling with fear. Qianqi never thought that she would be so scared, and she should not have suggested to watch a horror. No man would like a cowardly woman. But Hao hugged her and said it's normal to be afraid of ghosts and she has nothing to worry about, and he doesn't think she's strange because of such a small thing. Qianqi said that in that case, if he doesn't feel disgusted by her, then she would be at ease. She was surprised that her weakness helped her, because until now Hao hadn't taken the initiative. Hao thought about it, because as soon as she got close to him, his heart started beating even faster, but he couldn't believe that he actually felt something for his half-sister. But at that moment he remembered his evil father who would be very angry with him. He got scared and took his hands off her and exclaimed that his father would kill him. Qianqi asked him what he had just said. He became very embarrassed and said that she had just heard him and he was afraid of a moment in the movie. An hour later the movie ended. Hao told his stepsister that it was late and they should go to bed. Suddenly she took his hand and suggested the up to the second floor together. Hao was surprised because it was the first time Qianqi behaved like this, but it made him feel a little bit like a man. They went up to the second floor and Hao wanted to go to his room, but at that moment Qianqi stood looking at him. He asked her if something was wrong. But Qianqi said she was very scared after the movie and asked if she could sleep next to him tonight. Hao thought, because if he and Qianqi are on the same bed, he won't be able to sleep tonight. She asked him why he is silent and if he doesn't want to. Hao replied that if she was okay with it, he would not oppose her, but Hao thought that since the girl had suggested it, he, as a boy, could not refuse her. A few minutes later they lay on the bed and Qianqi said that she was such a coward, and just now a silhouette flashed through the window, and now she was even more afraid. Hao said that she did not need to make excuses, because they were one family, and should not be ashamed to show their real selves, and no matter how he wouldn't hate her because of it. But at that moment she hugged his head and moved closer to him. Hao didn't understand what was going on and why she was doing that. The next morning Qianqi woke up in a great mood, enjoyed sleeping in Hao's arms, but if she had kissed him yesterday she would have felt even better. She said good morning to him and looked at him, but Hao was lying there completely bewildered and didn't answer her. Qianqi asked him if he was okay and wanted to check his temperature, but Hao said he didn't need to and he was fine. But it was because she had held him so tightly last night and he couldn't sleep. Qianqi said that next time they wouldn't watch horror movie. Sand said she'd make him breakfast. Hao thought about it. He could use some food, even though he hadn't done anything yesterday. His body ached as if he'd been unloading cars. A few minutes later he was getting ready for school, but at that moment, Luan started sending him stickers of himself. Luan wrote that he did it and they suddenly went viral on the internet. But seeing this, Hao was very angry. He said that Luan was doing whatever he wanted again and needed to be taught a lesson to console his hurt pride. Hao went down to the first floor and Qianqi asked him to be careful on the way to school. He said he would be very careful and asked what she was reading. Qianqi said she was sitting in the chat room and got his stickers and she liked them very much. He felt embarrassed and asked her not to use the stickers and Luan apparently just had nothing else to do. She didn't want to offend him and said she wouldn't use them anymore, but at that moment she whispered that his beauty should only belong to one person. Hao didn't hear it and asked what she just Qianqin said that he just heard what she said and he should go to school because if he was late again, his father would be angry. Going to school, all the girls started to recognize him because he was the stickers that had become very popular. Hao was not happy about it because as soon as Luan published those damn stickers, he became the center of attention and discussion again. Going to school, the girls called him handsome and asked if those cute stickers were his and said he was going to be a star soon and wanted his autograph. But Hao told them they were wrong and it wasn't him and he had to go and was late. Hao was puzzled why those stickers were spreading at the speed of light and he couldn't live like that if he was being harassed all the time. He went into the office in a rage and told Luan to come to him immediately. Luan asked him if he wanted him to make more stickers. He can do that because he has a lot of pictures of him. But Hao told him to remove those stickers because he is a man and he doesn't want his pictures going around the internet. Yuhua came up to them and asked him why he was angry. Hao said it's just nothing and asked her, did she really cut her hair? She said yes, since he himself had told her yesterday that her hair had grown out and that's why she decided to cut her hair. Hao said it suited her very well, but he thought Yuhua was incredible and one look was enough for his anger to evaporate immediately. She told him that she would take him to a secret place in the evening and there he would definitely be in a better mood. After a while they came to an old school building. Hao and Yuhua were sitting confused under a desk. Hao didn't understand what was going on here but a girl came there with her boyfriend. He told her that they had agreed just to kiss and asked her to stop. Hao just wanted to talk to Yuhua alone, but somehow they got into this situation and heard those conversations. Yuhua wanted to say something to him but at that moment he put his palm on her mouth and asked her not to say anything at that moment. But at that moment Hao felt that she licked his mouth and he was in a stupor and didn't understand why she just did that. Suddenly she said that she wanted to do the same, and then she jumped on him and kissed him. Hao realized that Yuhua had become attached to him. They were the same age and Yuhua was a very nice girl. He thought about starting to date her, and maybe then, his stepsister wouldn't molest him anymore. After a few seconds, Yuhua couldn't breathe and moved away from him. Hao told her that when kissing, she should also breathe or she would suffocate. She said she understood and would take it into consideration next time. Hao said they should talk about next time later, and that the couple had already left and they should go too. Hao and Yuhua were holding hands and Hao didn't know if should go out her. He remembered his half-sister and Yuhua and couldn't make up his mind as the choice was too hard. At this time, Miss Wei asked the assistant in surprise, weren't they the ones who made Hao popular overnight? Said that Hao didn't contract with them, so there was no need for them to help promote him. But as soon as a photo of him looking relaxed in a relaxed pose appeared on the internet, he instantly became a star. Hao had become the subject of everyone's discussion before when he was photographed at McDonald's. Wei said she liked Hao for a reason, but she didn't want his private photos to go online. She was afraid that if Hao became popular, it would affect his daily life. Wei told her to find a way to delete them. The assistant said that the photos had already spread everywhere. There was no telling how many people had saved his photos and also people found his photos from junior high school. They can delete the posting itself, but the photos that are in other people's phones, they can't be deleted. But she saw the look wise and said she would definitely look into the matter. Wei went on WeChat and saw many girls discussing Hao. She was furious and couldn't allow other girls to dream. But it's good that it's a past picture. According to her guess, it's not the Hao she knows. The current genuine Hao is the most attractive to her. But she saw a lot of documents on her desk. She had spent the whole day dealing with the news about Hao, so she forgot about her own business. Wei was like a curse and didn't understand why Hao was always going against her. And if he kept this up, it would only fuel her desire more. She imagined how she would kiss him. Wei exclaimed that the others should not even hope, because Hao would only belong to her. After school, Hao was returning home, and near the house he saw some car. Wei saw him and rolled down the window. Hao saw her and exclaimed in surprise, is it her again? He told her that last time, he suggested her to burn all the bridges and not meet again, and she was fine with that. Then why did she come now? Or did she think she could take back what she said so easily? Wei replied that she tried to keep her promise, but what can she do if she can't control herself? Hao reminded her that she's a big boss with tons of responsibilities, plus she's a military-trained person, and why can't she keep her cool? She said that there were a lot of pictures of him on the internet, they kept catching her eye, and those damn commenters under the posts only made it worse. Wei grabbed his tie and said that besides, how can she be impartial when so many girls are dreaming about a man she likes a lot? Hao thought that Wei was just crazy, and if he started arguing right in front of the house and his sister saw it, it would be very embarrassing. He asked her to let him go and it would be better for them to talk in the car. Hao asked her, did he not make himself clear? In that case he would be even more frank, and he likes girls who are sweet, sometimes playful, docile and meek, not strict like her. He thought, because with someone like her he would have to be docile and he would feel like an Alphonse. Wei smiled and said, so he likes masculine women. She lit a cigarette and said, or were the women in his past world like that? He said that there was no need to try to catch him, and about the other world she made it up for herself, and he said no such thing, and all she needs to know is that she is just not his type. Wei asked him how can he compare her to such insignificant women. After all, money and position in society is not a problem for her, and he is only required to stay at home and be a man, and he will provide him with everything he needs. What is wrong with that? Hao thought about it, because doing nothing and living off a woman sounds so tempting. He asked her to calm down first, and he realized that she had feelings for him, but in the beginning of falling in love, everyone feels like they can't live without the person they are in love with, but he suggested that she look around. After all, once he starts talking to other guys, she will realize that he is not so special. Suddenly she asked him, how does he know? And does he really have someone? If so, who is she? Could it be Ming Tianqi's granddaughter, named Yu Hua? But as far as she knows, Yu Hua is not her type either. But at that moment, he grabbed her hand and said that if she just tries to do something to Yu Hua, she will regret it a lot. Wei asked him in surprise, how dare he call Yu Hua by her name so easily? Hao got angry at her and said why she still can't calm down, because now she is angry because of someone's name that doesn't even have anything to do with her, then he will call her Nan Nan, or maybe Xiao Nan, or Little Xiao Nian. But Wei was shy and asked him to stop. Hao never thought that Wei could be shy because of some name. Hao told her that he and Yu Hua just have a friendly relationship and nothing more, and if she wants to make sure, he can make her friends with UH. After a few minutes, Hao told her he had to go and she had to go to lunch. Hao noticed that Wei was acting like a real bull. He hoped that she would not follow him every day. He went to the door of the house, and at that moment a man in a black hood approached. He lowered the hood and asked if he could help him and give this gift to Qianqin. Hao saw him and his face looked very familiar, and at that moment he remembered that he was the man who sent Qianqin his pictures. Hao told him that he knew he was the man who sent Qianqin his dirty pictures. Hao told him that he was her younger brother and her business was his business, and if he saw him here again, he would report him to the police for harassment, and told him to get the hell out of here. The man indignantly asked him who he thought he was, and he will definitely win Qianqin's attention. Then Hao went home and Qianqin told him that her parents were not home, so she was a little lazy to cook food and bought fast food from McDonald's. Hao looked at her and was shocked that his stepsister is very seductive. She always teases him randomly, so it is always hard for him to resist. At this moment, she coughed to get his attention. Hao asked, did she have something wrong? And why was she upset? She said, he has become so popular, straight star on social media. Even today when she was in McDonald's, many people were looking at his pictures, so she is a little jealous of him. Hao replied that she has nothing to worry about as he doesn't want to become popular. Qianqin said that becoming popular is not really good, because many people hype for recognition, take dirty pictures, and asked him not to become the same, because only she can look at his body. Hao choked up when he heard her last words and thought, what did she just say that for? Qianqin said she was just joking and he was so scared and offered him a Coke. Hao was popular in school and now he was famous on the internet. And there must be many people looking at him with fascination and an army of fans. She knew she had to take action as soon as possible. Late at night, she knocked on the door of his room and asked if she could come in. Hao could not refuse her and let. Qianqin asked him if she could work with him and if she would disturb him. When he saw her in her dress, he was stunned, because she had the warmth of a stepsister. Hao said that he could work and she would not. She was happy about it, because she enjoyed spending time with him, even doing tedious work becomes a joy. Hao shyly said that he felt the. Suddenly she said she wanted to give him something and held out an envelope with her salary that she had received for one day. It was 3,000 yuan, because recently she had been spending too much money. Hao was surprised and asked if she had received 3,000 yuan for one day of working as a hospital assistant. He thought about it, because it wasn't fair, because in his previous life, he worked every day and only got a fraction of that kind of salary. Qianqin said that she was still studying, but now she could assist the operating surgeon, and today she got a small operation and earned that money, but it wasn't considered a big amount. But this was her plan, because before Hao has many admirers to show him her advantage, because she is not just a simple intern. Hao was even more surprised because he couldn't believe that 3,000 yuan in one day is considered small. She said that usually interns are not trusted to assist, but she is capable and can be said to be a talented sister. After all, she got the highest score in the entrance exam, so she started working on projects with professors before anyone and started studying clinical biochemistry before anyone else. Usually, a doctoral student in cardiac surgery graduates at 26 or 27, and clinical biochemistry takes 3 years, but usually you can't become an operating surgeon at 30. But of course she hasn't become an operating surgeon yet, but she has already earned the fame of a genius, and the fame of a specialist runs ahead of her, so she will be accepted in any big hospital. Hao called her amazing. Good that she earns a lot of money, then dad and aunt will feel better and they won't have to overwork. Qianqin told him that he is very caring. However, his parents are not overworking, they just have a new project and her mom just called her and said that they will be. He asked in surprise and shyness, will dad and aunt be gone for a few more days? Qianqin said yes. Hao wondered, after all, would he and Qianqin really be home alone for a while longer? He ran to the bathroom and did not understand why his parents were delayed for a few days. After all, he is a man in the prime of his life. If he is alone with his half-sister so often, eventually he just can't stand. He made a promise to himself that now there will be no unnecessary looks or movements. Hao went into the room, but at this moment Qianqin changed her clothes again and he did not understand why she did it again. Replied that she put on her pajamas so that she could go straight to bed after she finished with her. She noticed that his face changed dramatically and asked what happened to him. But Hao sat down at the computer and said that everything was fine and she could continue working. Hao thought, they had been in the same room for a long time, but she was still looking at her laptop. Suddenly she looked at him and noticed that he was peeping. She decided to take advantage of this and said that this posture made her shoulders ache. And asked him if he could give her a massage. Hao again couldn't refuse her and started to massage her shoulders. She told him that he was talented and she was very pleased. Qianqin said that she had a day off this week and they could go out together. He replied that it was good for her to have some free time, but he couldn't remember ever going out with his half-sister. Qianqin was happy that he agreed and said that she would plan it herself. After all, it was their first date. Hao wondered and didn't understand what a date meant. Did she really think so? It was already 11 o'clock at night and Hao said it was past their bedtime. Qianqin was surprised that the time flew by so quickly. She said she would go to her room to sleep tonight. She started to leave and Hao said good night to her. Qianqin thought, although she couldn't reduce the distance between them further, at least he doesn't hate. And this time she won't let anything come between her and Hao. Hao was looking forward to the weekend to spend it with his stepsister. But at that moment he got a call from Ms. Wei. Hao told her that she can't be so stubborn and if she can't find a boyfriend, he can help. Wei replied that she hates men and not everyone is worthy to be her boyfriend. She said she only wants him and asked him to talk to her. But Hao asked if she hates men, then why doesn't she leave him alone? Wei replied that she said it without thinking, but as soon as she grew up, she had these cranky men hanging around her. Many of whom became her mother's playthings to climb up the social ladder, so she hates flirtatious and capricious men. But he is different from all of them. She has been trying her best since she was a little girl, except for the time she was on military exercises. She spent all her time working, so she doesn't know men, she doesn't know how to take care of them and how to please him, but she can get him anything he wants. And even if he wants a star from the sky, Feng Hong Group is funding the development of a rocket, so flying to the stars and getting him a star is no problem. Hao said he didn't want a star and suggested to her, but Wei said that was impossible because she had already tried it and asked him to wish for something else. But Hao said it was time for him to go to bed. He thought about it, because he didn't know that Wei, instead of having fun in her younger years, she worked hard, so he decided to shake her today. At that moment we saw little Hao. Qianqin asked him if he had a wife, but Hao said no. Qianqin said that from now on she will be his wife and he is forbidden to look at other girls. The next day Hao came to school and wrote to his half-sister that he made it to school and she had nothing to worry about. He didn't know why, but since he became popular on the internet because of the stickers, Qianqin started to worry about her even more and met him from school in person. At that moment Yuhua came up to him. Hao asked her why she came so late. Said that she had been thinking about their kiss all night and that's why she couldn't sleep. Hao shyly told her that it was a secret and could only talk about it when they were alone. Suddenly she took his hand and said that now they were also alone and could she kiss him again. Hao stood there puzzled and didn't know what to say. He looked into her eyes but decided to tell her that last time was an accident. And you can't kiss in school. Yuhua suggested that he go to her house after school and asked if they could kiss there. He asked not to talk about it now and suggested they go to the class that was about to start. Yuhua was very upset about the failed. But Hao was different from the chaste men of this world and it would be bad if frequent kissing made him lose his head. During lunch break Hao called Luan to the cafeteria, but as soon as they left the classroom, there were girls waiting for him who admired his beauty and asked him to leave them an autograph. Hao didn't understand what was going on and if it was because of a few stickers, but yesterday everything was normal. Luan was surprised that Hao was really starting to become an internet star. He said that someone had made a video of all the photos they found on the internet and social media went crazy because of it. Everyone called him the handsome guy that comes around once every few thousand years. Suddenly he felt someone touching him from behind, but at that moment Yuhua grabbed that girl's hand and angrily said that Hao didn't like it when someone did and said she wasn't allowed to pet him. All the girls at school were puzzled by Yuhua's behavior. Hao told her to stop and asked her to let that girl go. But at that moment some woman came up to them and told them all leave. If they didn't leave, all the students would go to the teacher's office to write an excuse for their behavior. All the girls got scared and ran away. Fang asked Lin, because there were girls in the crowd who were courting him. They've been attending his live shows all the time, and now they've switched to Hao. Lin said he doesn't care, because Hao has nothing but a pretty face. And his current fame is just a temporary thing, and he won't even pay attention to it. But the girls were discussing the sports car which had just arrived at the school. They thought it was just a rich girl from a rich family looking for a boyfriend. They assumed it had arrived at Hao Place and decided to look at it. Feng asked Lin why he froze in place, told him to shut up, and he didn't envy him. At this time, there were 4 new cars outside the school and Miss Wei was sitting in the white. Luan saw these cars and told Hao to come and look at it too. But Hao asked what was unusual about it and suggested they go out to buy some food until they were surrounded by a crowd of girls again. Hao is popular again, but in his previous life he couldn't stand those pretty boys, and what's happening to him now is just another mockery of fate. He got a call from Ms. Wei and Hao asked her what was the need to watch him at school. Wei told him to come out as she brought him some food. He asked if she was the one who came to his school, but he said he would not come out to her but would eat with his classmates. Wei said she knew he would say that to her and she had prepared herself and had another way. At that moment she got out of the car and everyone was shocked when they saw her. She snapped her fingers and the helpers came. They had expensive and delicious food in their hands. Wei said that if he didn't want to come out to her, she would take his lunch directly to the school. Hao was shocked and said what was she doing and told him to stop immediately. Yuhua asked him who he was talking to on the phone like that. Hao said he had a sudden change of business and asked Luan to go eat. He ran to the school exit and Yuhua was very upset and didn't know what to say. Hao ran up to the crowd and showed her to take the phone. The assistant gave her the phone, but she looked at it and just smiled. She asked him if he liked it, but Hao said furiously that she was just crazy and if he liked it he wouldn't have turned her down all this time. Wei said that a man likes this kind of thing and so she thought he would like it too. Hao said that this time she won and he is ready to go out, but she needs to make all the cars leave and he will be waiting for her at the side gate of the school and she needs to remember not to attract attention, and if he hears any rumors about them they will never see her again. After 10 minutes she changed her clothes and put on a cap so no one would recognize. Hao came up to her and asked her if she really decided to have lunch with him today. Wei said yes. He said if she was so insistent on it, then the place they would eat at would be his choice, but Wei didn't care and said he could choose any place. After a few minutes they came to an old cafe. Wei asked if he really wanted to eat at that place. It's just a diner. Hao said that he likes to eat in such places, but if she can't eat in such places because of her status, she can go home. Wei didn't know if she should eat in such a place. But Hao brought her there on purpose and hoped that Wei would leave him quickly. But Wei wasn't going to leave, so they went to this cafe and Wei wanted to order whatever was on the menu. Hao stopped her because he knew she had money, but that's how poor people eat, and if she wanted to show off her money, she better not eat with him at all. So Hao ordered beef tripe soup with scrambled eggs. Wei saw the cheap noodles and asked if she could eat such cheap noodles. Hao said that if she sees him alive and well, then she can. The cook asked her whether she would order or not and not to waste her precious time. Hao asked her to cook what he ordered for himself. Wei told her to make sure all the ingredients were the freshest and to wear gloves while cooking. She got angry with her and angrily asked her who she was and what. But at that moment Wei showed her the money and the cook told her that the customer is always right and she would definitely wear gloves. Hao was upset that the hostess was too sure. But Wei told him that he should look at her like that, not some cook. Hao asked if she was even jealous of the cook. But she asked him if he even ate the food. But Hao said, "What's the problem? They are ordinary mortals and eat such food. Maybe in this cafe is not quite clean, but they do not stick to the contagion and this is his life." Now she sees it, and she does not fit into this interior, even now sitting as if on pins and needles. And he's not some princess, so he doesn't advise her to seek any more meetings with him, but Wei sat there and didn't know what to say to him. After a few minutes food was brought. Wei said she could eat this, since when she was in military training, the food in the camping trips was worse than this one. But however, she felt bad for him as she didn't want him to eat this dirty and unhealthy food. Hao said that he didn't force him to eat it, but he wondered why she became so caring today. Suddenly she asked him, how did he get so much experience in kissing? Is there really a girl he's practicing with? He said why would she ask that at mealtime? Hao said he had practiced from the video, and would she be satisfied with that answer? Wei warned him that he would feel very bad if she found out that he has a closer relationship with another girl. Otherwise, she's not responsible for herself.